Opening the word, everyone uses fascism. It's a word that shows up everywhere. In political debates, in social media arguments, even in casual insults. People call politicians fascists, governments fascists. Sometimes even a strict boss or teacher gets called fascist. But here's the problem. Most people using the word don't actually know what it means. When many of us hear fascism, we immediately think of World War II, Nazi Germany, and some of the worst crimes ever committed. But is fascism just Nazi Germany? Or is it something broader? And if it is broader, could it appear again today? To answer that question, we need to go back to where fascism actually began. The world after World War I, early 1900s, were a time of enormous change. Technology was transforming daily life. Cars and trains were connecting cities. Factories were producing goods faster than ever before. Modern machines were reshaping society. But then came World War I, a war so brutal it shattered the optimism of an entire generation. Machine guns, artillery, poison gas, and trench warfare turned Europe into a slaughterhouse. Millions died. When the war ended in 1918, Europe was exhausted. Countries were bankrupt, economies collapsed, and people everywhere were asking the same question: what kind of society should come next? Two countries in crisis, two nations, felt the consequences of the war especially strongly: Italy and Germany. Italy had technically won the war, but many Italians believed their allies had cheated them out of promised territory. They called it a mutilated victory. Germany faced an even worse situation. The Treaty of Versailles forced Germany to pay enormous reparations. Its economy collapsed. At one point, German currency became almost worthless. People literally carried money in wheelbarrows. Anger and humiliation spread across the country. And in this moment of crisis, many people began looking for radical solutions. The rise of revolutionary ideas. One possible solution came from Russia. In 1917, a communist revolution had overthrown the Russian government. Workers and peasants had seized power, promising a new political system. Communism quickly gained supporters in many European countries. Strikes, protests, and factory occupations became common. But communism was not the only radical idea gaining attention. Another movement was beginning to form in Italy, and its leader was a man named Benito Mussolini. Mussolini's transformation. Interestingly, Mussolini had originally been a socialist. He worked as a journalist advocating for workers' rights. But during World War I, his views changed. He began emphasizing national unity and military strength instead of class struggle. After the war, Mussolini created a new political movement made largely of war veterans. These men felt angry and betrayed. They believed Italy had been humiliated, and Mussolini told them that only strength and violence could restore national pride. The birth of fascism. Mussolini's movement adopted a symbol from ancient Rome: a bundle of wooden rods tied together around an axe. This symbol was called a fasces. One stick can easily break, but many sticks tied together are strong. From this symbol came the word fascism. The idea was simple. The nation must be unified, disciplined, and powerful. Individual interests should be secondary to the strength of the state. Violence becomes political strategy. Mussolini's supporters formed armed groups known as the Black Shirts. They attacked political opponents. They beat up socialists and communists. They destroyed newspapers and offices belonging to rival political groups. Violence became a central part of fascist politics. But here's the surprising part. Many powerful people in Italy tolerated this violence. Business owners and wealthy elites feared communist revolution, so they often supported Mussolini's movement. Fascism enters the political system. Eventually, Mussolini's movement gained enough influence that politicians invited them into government. Many leaders believed they could control him. They thought bringing fascists into the political system would calm things down. Instead, the opposite happened. Mussolini used the political system to gain power. In 1922, tens of thousands of fascist supporters marched toward Rome. Rather than risk civil war, Italy's king appointed Mussolini as prime minister. The end of democracy in Italy. Once in power, Mussolini slowly dismantled democratic institutions. Opposition parties were banned, Independent newspapers were shut down. A secret police force monitored critics. Within a few years, Italy became a dictatorship, and fascism was now the official ideology of the state. A second fascist leader appears meanwhile. Something similar was happening in Germany. A young war veteran named Adolf Hitler was watching Mussolini's rise closely. Germany's post-war crisis created fertile ground for radical ideas. Many Germans believed their country had been betrayed. Hitler built a political movement around anger, nationalism, and racial ideology. His party became known as the Nazis. Like Mussolini's movement, the Nazis created violent street militias. They attacked political enemies and spread propaganda blaming minorities and communists for Germany's problems. Hitler learns from Mussolini. Hitler initially attempted a violent coup. It failed, and he was sent to prison. But while in prison, Hitler studied Mussolini's success. He realized that power could be achieved through elections. The plan was simple: use democracy to gain power, then destroy democracy from within. The Great Depression changes everything. In 1929, the global economy collapsed. Unemployment in Germany skyrocketed. Millions were desperate. Hitler used this crisis to gain support. In elections during the early 1930s, the Nazi Party rapidly gained votes. Eventually, political elites allowed Hitler to become Germany's chancellor. They believed they could control him. They were wrong. Hitler takes absolute power soon after becoming chancellor. Hitler declared a national emergency. Civil liberties were suspended. Opposition parties were banned. Democratic institutions were dismantled. Germany became a dictatorship, and the fascist system reached its most extreme form. The consequences under fascist rule: both Mussolini and Hitler promoted aggressive nationalism and militarization. Their regimes launched wars of expansion. Hitler's regime also carried out genocide on an unprecedented scale. The Holocaust murdered millions of Jews and other targeted groups. World War II became the deadliest conflict in human history. What fascism actually is. So what can we learn from this history? Fascism is not simply an insult. Historically, fascism includes several key characteristics: extreme nationalism, glorification of violence, hatred of democracy, the rise of a powerful leader, suppression of political opposition, propaganda, and mass mobilization. It often begins during times of crisis, when societies feel humiliated, unstable, or threatened. Is fascism returning today? Many scholars today debate whether fascism is reappearing. Some believe modern movements share similar characteristics. Others argue that today's political systems are different. What most experts agree on is this: understanding the history of fascism helps us recognize dangerous political patterns, and recognizing those patterns early may be the best way to prevent them from repeating.